Okay, and we are live. Well, welcome to another episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Now, again, with me, I have Logan. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How are you, man?
Good, good. There's a lot happening over the past few weeks. And yeah, I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
just a bit.
yeah. And, some good, some great, some bad. But that's kind of how it goes when it comes to, the whole game and news topic stuff. But, we're just going to jump straight into it. So, Battlefield. Now, I tend to rant about Battlefield because, everyone has those game franchises they've loved over the years. And, you want these games to do the best. And it's kind of painful to see these franchises you love just change over time. And, oh yeah, quick message to everyone. Please share it on social media. It helps the channel out. But yeah, so Battlefield is one of those franchises. I loved it. During 2011, I played that a lot I think it was Battlefield 3. Like, that took me away from Call of Duty, which was a big thing at the time because anyone played Call of Duty. So the fact that it took my attention away just proved how good it was. It was fantastic. And then Battlefield 4 came along. It was broken at launch, and it took them a year to fix it. And then Battlefield Hardline came along, and people were wondering why did they shift it to a police-style setting. Then we got Battlefield 1, which was World War One, which was it was a bit fresh because we hadn't had World War setting for Battlefield in a long time. And then we had, Battlefield 5 that launched with a ton of bugs. Its support was cancelled after like 6 or so months. Basically, everything that was planned for that in the long term didn't even happen. The Battle Royale mode didn't succeed. And then we get Battlefield 2042. It had an amazing trailer, a bunch of them actually, and all the demos looked really cool. I played the alpha, and it wasn't that good. And the thing is, people wanted, Battlefield to go back to its roots. Either Battlefield 3 or, Battlefield Bad Company. So, bear in mind, a lot of people have spent 60, 70, upwards of $100 on their copy of Battlefield, and it's broken across all platforms. It doesn't even have a scoreboard. A competitive multiplayer game, which is surprising because isn't that the point? So, where am I going with this? Now, Logan, I've not told you about what I'm about to tell you. So,
All right, I'm all ears.
so I hear about things before they get announced. I've seen stuff, and some things I hear about before anyone else. I see things months in advance. But this one thing in particular, I didn't hear about. It's public knowledge, and somehow it just flew underneath my radar. And a lot of people still don't know about it. So, DICE and EA are working on Battlefield Mobile. So, Call of Duty, there's a mobile game that's really popular in a lot of countries. And it's basically what people wanted from Call of Duty. It's a traditional, modern style COD. So, when I was looking into what Battlefield Online is, or Battlefield Mobile, it's basically Battlefield 3, but instead of 24 players, you have 32. The Battlefield experience people have been wanting for years is going to be on mobile exclusively. So yeah, that's kind of
That
heartbreaking.
that reminds me of the BlizzCon. Y'all have phones, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah, like,
Oh my gosh.
I get it. Like, phones have advanced a lot, and the graphics you can have on these phones now is fantastic. People stream console video games to their mobiles now. xCloud does that. You can play streaming games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey on things like a Switch. So, the text came a long way, but people have been wanting a traditional Battlefield game for years, and then this happens, and it's just like, after all this time. And here's the thing, DICE and EA are barely talking about it. It's a under-the-radar thing. Some people have been playing the beta on mobile in some countries. It's like a few countries in the Middle East have access to this, like alpha, but nobody else does. And it's just strange. This beloved franchise that people wanted to see come back strong gets a mobile version, and it's basically what people want. Battlefield 3 is the game that took a million COD fans like myself away from COD because it was just so good. The gameplay, spectacular, sound effects, weapon design, every aspect of Battlefield 3 was a step above COD at the time. and then it's just gone downhill over the years. And it's like, you don't really play Battlefield, right? Logan? Okay, Logan's audio's went off, so if Logan, if you're listening, your audio's went off, you're gonna have to back out and get back in. But basically, this beloved franchise has just changed over time.
You hear me?
There we go.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's all right. So you've played Battlefield before, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like, what's your thought on, like, the mobile version in this mobile game being the thing that people have wanted, while the console version and the PC version is just not?
I think on one hand, it's kind of a slap in the face to maybe some classic fans. Like, really, the thing we really wanted, you're putting on mobile instead of console or PC, what gives? On another hand, if it's a tried and true thing that they know people like, expanding it, using it to expand into a market they're trying to get to, the mobile market, which is especially huge overseas, it's a smart play if it works properly. But, I mean, mobile comes with a whole bunch of other stuff that the PC and console don't have to deal with. So it'll be interesting to see how it works, but maybe this is what kind of is the jolt that Battlefield needs to get back on track. It'll be interesting to watch, though.
Yeah. So it's just a shame. So we're gonna start hearing more about the mobile version in the next few months, because the earnings calls coming up and stuff. So Battlefield is in a bad state, and if you're on any platform that has Battlefield, I recommend not buying it. People aren't getting the money's worth, and just the way they're releasing the season pass stuff, it's just bad. Anyway, we'll move on. So we need to talk about CrossfireX. So CrossfireX, a popular, if in fact it's the most popular FPS on the planet when it comes to numbers, because it's the biggest game in China, basically. So this game gets announced for Xbox. People loving the idea of this. We get a console alpha. We get trailers for a campaign made by Remedy. People like myself, who's a fan of Remedy for many years, excited. I have every reason on earth to be excited for them to make a cool new military FPS campaign. What could be bad about that? How could this possibly go wrong? And we get a trailer last year. It looked really cool. It looked promising. All signs were pointing towards a good product. We get a beta, and a lot of people are not really fancying and liking the multiplayer. Personally, I think the multiplayer is subpar. Whatever. But the campaign. We didn't hear anything for months. Some media outlets had access to a level during December when its release date was announced at the Game Awards 2021. So, ever since then, we've heard nothing, and there's been next to no marketing for it. Microsoft have barely talked about this. In fact, the only time they have talked about it is said when it's going to be in Game Pass, and that was a messy situation, and the launch of the game has just been terrible. Like, I've been around for bad launches, and this has to be up there. This has to be one of the worst. And I love Remedy. They make fantastic games. Alan Wake, Max Payne, Quantum Break, Control. And this is just terrible. Like, when games launch with a multiplayer component and a single-player component, it launches a few different ways. They either have both things in the same app, like Halo Infinite, where you have access to the multiplayer because it's free to play, or you have access to the campaign if you've bought it, and available in Xbox Game Pass. Or you have it the other way, where it's two different apps. So think things like Crackdown 3 and Warzone, where you buy one or the other, and they're two different things. They went out of their way to make this as complicated as humanly possible, and I don't know why. So basically, you launch the CrossfireX app, and when you start the game, it takes you to a menu, and it's basically the multiplayer screen, where the two campaigns are listed on the side. And you might think, that's not complicated. Oh no, it gets worse. So basically, the campaign was split into two parts. Part 1, Operation Catalyst, was meant to be included in Xbox Game Pass. Operation Spectre, you'd have to buy separately. So that led me and a lot of other people to believe that, well, they must have so much confidence in this campaign and how good it is that they want people to play the first part for free, basically, in Game Pass, and pay for the second half. And I was up for that. I was ready to spend the money. And then the game launched. And to this day, it's still showing up full price for people. a lot of people with Xbox Game Pass still don't have access to the campaign. A lot of media outlets that have played this game have said it's arguably the worst game of the year. So, yeah. What have you got to say on this, Logan? Because what a mess.
Probably the most polite thing I can say is that it's unacceptable in the year 2022 for a game to come out like this. It is just terrible. It the multiplayer is just dated and broken, and you see all these clips and everything looking like a 360 game and not a polished one at that. You have the campaign. It's supposed to be half included with Game Pass and then half buy, but then it's not even fully available for Game Pass people. And then the fact that apparently it's not that long of a campaign, even then. And so you have a broken, short, not great looking, not great running game that launches, and you can't even get to it if you wanted to get to it. And it, I mean, I tweeted out, I was like, no wonder this thing was MIA for marketing. They, we're not in these meetings or stuff, but there's a good chance you see this and you're like, yeah, we're just not going to talk about that. We're just going to let that one kind of just go out there and it's going to happen. And yeah, we move along. It, safe to say it's not ideal
Yeah.
and it's not the way it should be. And kudos to their president. Smilegate came out with an apology letter and things that they're going to do to fix it and try to make it right. I mean, that's the right thing to do. I hope it turns out great. I'll play it once they get everything fixed because, like you, I'm a big Remedy guy and I was looking forward to the campaign. Multiplayer's not really my thing, but the campaign, I love a good story, military stories, especially from like COD and stuff. So I was looking forward to it, but yeah, it definitely got punted down my interest list for a long time until they get their act together on this.
Yeah. I mean, the CrossfireX marketing from Microsoft, they essentially pulled the ripcord. Like, they saw the writing on the wall and were like, nope, we're not having our name attached to this. And it's sad, a lot of people like myself have been looking forward to this because in 2022, I look back at the past decade, we don't get military linear first-person shooter campaigns. Not many anymore. You have Call of Duty, Battlefield doesn't have them anymore. And even when it comes to first-person military campaigns, in general, we just don't get many. So I was looking forward to it. And plus, Remedy are known for great storytelling. And they launched a first-person shooter, which has a campaign, and it's in a bad state. And it gets worse. Smilegate, they did announce that they are going to fix it, but the fact that this game launched with no achievements for the campaign is mind-boggling. You have people that will not buy games if there's no achievements. Original Xbox games don't have achievements. So people have told me in the past they haven't bought them because, no achievements. And, fair enough. There's a huge market out there for people that play games for achievements. But people just like to get them in general. And the fact that all 12 achievements, and I think there's 12, are all allocated to multiplayer. And that is mind-boggling. I don't know why Smilegate thought it was good to allocate all the achievements to themselves. It's just weird. And the fact that it's split into two parts, like, again, this has to be one of the most complicated launches for a game I've ever seen. They went above and beyond to make it complicated, and, no wonder Microsoft just stopped talking about it. Because if you look at last year and the year before, they were like, oh yeah, CrossfireX this. It all looked good. Well, now we know why they stopped talking about it, and it's a shame. And, I've played the multiplayer. Geordie from Xbox Ever in chat just said, it's terrible multiplayer. It is. It's bad. I don't know how that's the biggest game on the planet. Like, is it because there's nothing else available? Like, talk about bad gameplay. Like, I put it like this. I played the multiplayer for a few matches just to see what it was like. And I'd be walking down, a corridor or, a street, and I'd get shot, and I'd have no idea where from. And it's not like, oh, because I'm playing bad. It's because I was getting shot through a wall. Like that game doesn't have destructibility, and I was getting shot through a wall. It's like it's just weird how bad that game is. You know, the campaign's graphics, from what I've seen on Twitter and YouTube, it looks pretty good. But when it comes to just a full product, it's not there, and it's a shame. If anyone's played Quantum Break and Control and Alan Wake, their games are like high in quality. I know Control had some bugs, but Remedy's games aren't known to be buggy, just in general. Like, they are usually solid products, and it's a shame. It really is. And I don't recommend people play the multiplayer. Don't spend your money on this because, again, it's in a terrible state. And I'm actually shocked that they had no achievements allocated to the story. Like, what were they thinking? There's achievements for play 2 games, play on 100 maps, and apparently wins classes 2. So it's weird, man. So basically, if you want to get an easy 1000G, play this game for maybe, I don't know, 6 hours. You could probably do it in. But it's a shame. And, everyone's idle in chat just said, why didn't they delay it? It's because a lot of these companies, either A, they need to meet, some sort of, what's the term? Investor meeting call or whatever. There's a many reasons why games get launched early. And sometimes games have been launched in the past early because they have no intention of fixing it. That doesn't happen often, but it's happened. And it's a shame. It really is. But fortunately, we're in a time filled with lots of cool games, and there's been a lot of good games recently. And I want to talk about Edge of Eternity. We actually have some good stuff to talk about. So, have you played Edge of Eternity, Logan?
No, not yet, but it's one I'm very excited about. I'm a big JRPG guy, and I'm all for new, smaller studios trying their hand at that craft, and it looks beautiful. The twin-tailed cat, all the combat, the world, the exploration, it looks right up my alley, and I'm excited to get started on it. How about you, man?
Yeah, so I've played about 15 hours, I think, of Edge of Eternity, and what can I say? I'm impressed. Like, it's available in Xbox Game Pass. It's got multiple modes on Xbox Series X and S, performance and, resolution modes. And yeah, it's great. And the thing is, this is why I've been talking about this game so much on social media, is that a lot of people want to try and get into JRPGs, but they can't. The barrier to entry for JRPGs is actually pretty high. For many reasons. And, I have some gameplay in the background for people to see here. So JRPGs can be frustrating because they're either difficult and they don't explain things to you. And this game solves all of that. The game's easy to get into. It has multiple difficulty modes, so you can make this game as difficult or as easy as you want. There's an option in the settings, so you can save the game anywhere you want. So, like, some JRPGs still don't allow you to do that. Well, you can save anywhere. Or if you want to make this game difficult, use the allocated save points in the game. The fact that you can fast forward time in battles, it's super easy. And it's just, there's so many quality of life improvements for the genre that I'm actually surprised, because this game's been developed by like 10 people. And there's games that have been in development for almost twice as long that have half the features. And I'm just having a lot of fun with it. It's a gorgeous looking game. Again, it's an indie title, but the fact that we don't see a lot of big 3D JRPGs on Xbox, and like, this is a must-play title. Fortunately, the developers gave me an early code. I haven't been paid to say anything. All I'll say is that, I'm grateful for the code, and it's been awesome. I'm beyond surprised with this title. And, I know I talk about a lot about this game respecting your time. Japanese RPGs do not respect people's time.
So grindy.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Like, I love Lost Odyssey, right? But every time I go to replay Lost Odyssey, I know for a fact there's going to be a point about 4 hours in where I'm going to have to grind for like 20 hours to beat the giant blue worm boss, which is the first proper boss in the game, and it's arguably one of the hardest ever. So there's always a point in JRPGs, you're like, okay, so this play session, I'm just going to be grinding for hours. And after 15 hours, I haven't had to grind at all. Like, at all. And that's really surprising. Like, the genre is filled with, lots of grinding and just annoyingness. And I don't know, it like if anyone in chat has played JRPGs, you know what I'm talking about. JRPGs don't respect your time. You know, the combat in this game, which you can fast forward through, it's super easy to get into. Some people do not like turn-based combat, and I can understand that. But it's so easy, I recommend people push through it because it's good. I will say this about the game. The opening isn't the best. It opens with a cool space combat cutscene because, again, this game blends sci-fi and fantasy, which is cool. But the opening section is kind of slow. But when you fast forward through the battle, you can get through the opening in about 15 minutes. So after that, the game opens up. It's just really good. You know, there's these two-tailed giant cats which you can ride, and they are essentially this game's version of chocobos. They work exactly like a chocobo, basically. You can call them in whenever you're, in the area with one. It's just good. You know, again, there's no grinding in this game. The only thing I'd say you'd have to grind for, and I'm doing air quotes, is for cash in the game. But even the economy in the game seems fair. There's nothing overly priced. And even the combat. So when you're playing, at the top of the screen, there's a little challenge. It tells you, if you get through this battle with half your health left, you get an extra reward. So they actually give you incentives in each battle to do something different. And that's the really fresh thing. It's that it does things new. There's these little challenge rooms where they basically puzzles where you have to place a character on a button that opens a coloured door. And basically, there's these puzzles spread throughout the environment that if you do them, you get more chests. All I'm saying is it's good. And Logan, I know you'll have noticed this. JRPGs and achievements, you never normally get many. Like, there's a lot in like Final Fantasy 15 and Lost Odyssey which require you to play for ungodly amount of hours to get them. But
very stingy.
Yeah, stingy,
Yes.
stingy. Yeah, this game's not like. I think I've got like 15 achievements or something. Like you get achievements pretty regularly, which is something you don't see for Japanese RPGs, like at all. But yeah, have you got anything else to say on this game?
No, except that the studio was recently acquired and by I believe Nacon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah.
So good luck to them and the studio. It's good to see talent, make a name for themselves and get picked up by a publisher, a good publisher. And Nacon's a publisher to keep an eye on as they're growing in this, arms race publishing gaming biz right now, and just that's a good sign that they saw talent and value in this IP and this studio. So keep an eye on the studio going forward. That's a really good positive development in their first game, and they already get picked up like that.
Oh yeah, like congratulations to them. And again, I'm surprised a team of 10 people made a game this good. I honestly, so far, I'm enjoying it as much as a big Final Fantasy game, which is a lot. Even the narrative storytelling, it shies away from exposition because if you watch anime or play Japanese RPGs, they just go over the top with trying to explain stuff to you. They don't do that in this game. It's easy to understand. But yeah, the tutorials in this game as well, they actually explain everything to you. And there's one thing they don't explain, so if people listen now that want to play it, you'll hit a point in the game where you'll wonder how you get spells. Spells are in crystals. When you open up the menu, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, when Nacom actually bought them, I think it was last week, I was actually surprised because as I was playing, I was thinking, I kind of wish Microsoft picks them up. like,
I feel you, man.
It's such a good game. Like, if they could have made like this type of JRPG with like 10 dudes across, I think it took them 7 years. Like, pretty impressive stuff. But yeah, congratulations on the team for the launch and stuff. Honestly, I'm happy about this game because one, it works. Two, it's really good. Like, too many times these days, I'd say games launch either broken or, not that good. But hey, we'll move on. Another game that launched in the meantime, Dying Light 2. I'm really surprised. The first game was a first-person parkour zombie action survival game, which shouldn't have worked, yet it did. And we have the sequel after all these years. And honestly, so far it's living up to the reputation of the first game. Like, have you played the sequel yet?
I have not played Dying Light 2, but I absolutely adored the first one, and I'm looking forward to the second one. And I've most people I know that have played it, they're quite enjoying it. I've seen a few kind of head scratching reviews on it, but that kind of seem odd talking about, like it improves upon everything, yet it's worse, and like some stuff like that. But for the most part, it sounds mostly positive for the game.
Yeah, I mean, it does everything the first game did, but it just expands on it. And in my opinion, isn't that what you want from a sequel? You know, when Mortal Kombat 12 gets announced, people want Mortal Kombat. They don't want cheesecake. You know, but yeah, it's good. It's really good. You know, they've added a lot more RPG elements to the game. They've actually added a bunch of choices throughout the game, which can change the world in small and big ways. But the cool thing about this game, and you know, a lot of people will actually like this, is that there's no achievements allocated to difficulties, so you can play this on easy or on hard and still get everything. Which I think,
That's really good.
yeah, like I think more games need to do that. Like maybe give someone an achievement for completing the game on hard, but you know these games don't have to be hard as nails to be rewarding. But the game's good. The open world is fantastic, like really well designed, and it's a lot more vertical. You know, the first game it's kind of flat, even though you have access to parkour. But this game, like you have buildings that are like sometimes like 10 stories tall. So it's just a better Dying Light, and that's what I want from this type of game. I noticed weapons take longer to degrade, which is really good because if you played the first game and you find an axe that you're not going to be using that axe for long, But yeah, so it has more RPG elements. The weapons are better. The ability to mod them is easier and better. Again, like there's not much I can say about it other than the fact it's just a better Dying Light, and that's kind of what you want from it. And yeah, I think everyone's going to enjoy it. Like if you've played the first one, you'll love it. I will say this though, I think people will still need to play the first one. I don't know if it's because I'm just such a big fanboy of Dying Light, but I think the first game is still good enough by itself that people should play that first. Plus, when you start this game, you're obviously going to know how to do all the parkour moves. And then this game over time teaches you new parkour moves. It even has a new type of grappling hook. But yeah, so far it's great. They're putting out free DLC soon. And the cool thing about this game, they've actually communicated to the player about what content and what updates are coming and when, which is very refreshing because the day it launched, it got its day one update, and then the day after it launched, they put out multiple patch notes for the future of what platforms are going to get. So Xbox, PlayStation, PC, they all got a list each of what's going to be covered, and then what things they're going to update next. So things like motion blur is being corrected now, and frankly, as someone that gets motion sick in games, or should I say some games, the motion blur toggle has completely fixed it. I'm completely fine doing first person parkour now. Shizno Elite just said, aren't we supposed to get a proper next gen update for Dying Light 1? Yeah. So the developers have briefly spoke about this a few times, that it's coming. So I think we're just going to have to wait a bit, unfortunately. I think they have a second team working on that. I'm not entirely sure if they actually outsourcing the upgrade for the first game, but the first game still sells well, and that's why they're going to upgrade it. And personally, after I've finished 2, I'll probably go back to 1 when it gets its Series X enhancement. But all in all, it's a great game. Like, if people like Dying Light, they're going to like this game. It just has more choices. It's basically an RPG now, In the first game, you'd talk to a character, they'd give you a fetch quest, basically. You'd do that fetch quest, and that would be it. But in this game, they put you in many different scenarios where the choices you make matter. You can make a choice and someone's life could be on the line. Or you could be, double-crossed, and you have to make a choice about what's going to happen there. But yeah, it's really good. And yeah, Logan, I know you like Dying Light as well. I think you're going to love this game. Again, it's just more Dying Light. But I think you brought up a good thing, is like the scores made no sense. Like a lot of reviews were saying, yeah, it's like the first game, but we'll give it a lower score. But the funny thing is, and I'll rope in the whole Metacritic talk with this, is that whenever anyone talks about Dying Light, they talk about how good it is. They talk about their experience with the game and how weird it is that a first-person parkour zombie apocalypse game works. They don't talk about its Metacritic score. You know, it rated in the 70s. Nobody talks about Metacritic scores when it comes to Dying Light. They talk about how good it is and that it still gets support to this day. You know, it just got an expansion, the first game, you know. And when it comes to this game, you know, and Horizon Zero Dawn's getting this, you know, people are just talking about Metacritic scores. And it's like, what is the point? Like, where are we at? Like, does it really matter? You know, of course, these studios see some benefit from getting a higher score, but at the end of the day, we don't benefit any of them. Hell, I have a critic review on Metacritic for a game, and even years later, I disagree with the score I gave it. I gave a game a 7. I felt bad about it, you know? But I don't know, man. Like, what's your thought on the whole Metacritic thing? Because it's been everywhere this past week.
It's crazy. Honestly, I didn't even know Metacritic was a thing until the Xbox One PS4 era. Like my whole life up to that point, I never knew that thing existed. I would just, I'd get a Game Informer or a Nintendo Power or whatever, and see what they had to say. And if I was familiar with the publication, I'd go, okay, yeah, I respect their opinion, or not sure I see that, but or hear what my friends had to say. That and then PS4 and Xbox One comes along, and then the social media age and console warring reached some just nuts stage of things to where everything is so fever pitched and toxic to where it's like, oh, if it gets an 88 it means this, but if it's a 90 it's this, or if it doesn't sell this much it means it's this, or if it sells that much it's that. I mean, it's like, does that even matter? Like in the grand, I mean, yes, sales matter. That's not my point. My point is, like, at the end of the day, as the consumer, are you really that concerned about the sales of it, or the what a group of 30 random people who had reviewed this and gave a score on? Does the weight of 30 people's opinion on something really outweigh the millions who are playing it on Game Pass, or are buying it on Steam, or downloading it through PlayStation Now? Like, it I think it serves a purpose because you can kind of get an idea of, like, okay, these are what some people thought about it. You're like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know about that mechanic. I'll write that down. I know now. Or for guides and stuff like that. But in general, I think its usefulness has devalued, and it has gotten to a point where it's more of a fanboy weapon than it is an actual, like, beneficial thing. And then you have infamous examples, like, you remember the Fallout New Vegas scenario,
Yeah.
where they basically missed out on a big payday because they got 1 point away from a certain score. Like 1 point, and it cost them a ton of money. And I mean, doesn't that seem a little weird that the opinion of 30 dudes or dudettes or whoever ended up carrying so much weight that it cost these people out on a huge payday because of 1 point? Like, because one guy might have given it a slightly lower grade because he's not a big RPG guy, or like how I'm sorry, this is turning into square rant territory, but um or like Forza Horizon, you're comparing a racing game score to an RPG score, and then it's like, well, what is the score of a racing game versus the score of an RPG? I mean, do they really balance? Do they match? Is a 92 racing the same as an 89 this? Or, like, what is an 89? Why wasn't it a 90? I think the system's broken, and I honestly prefer the review systems that are, I recommend the game, I don't recommend the game, I say buy the game, I say don't buy the game, or I say wait and buy it on sale. Stuff like that, that's more open to interpretation and subjective, and, like, here's the information, take it as you will.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at a game in the past that I had no idea what the Metacritic score was. A lot of people probably have never heard of this game. So there was a game came out in 2002 called Prisoner of War. It released on, I think it was Xbox and PC. It might have been on PlayStation as well, but basically it was like Hitman, but opposite Hitman. So basically you'd be put in a prison and you'd be given a bunch of different tools and ways to escape, and you had to figure out a way to escape. It was a really cool concept for a game, and there was 4 different prisons you had to escape from, each prison being more harder than the last. And I loved that game. It was very original. I'd never played anything like it, and ever since, there hasn't really been a game like that. And then years later, I think it was 2019, I finally found out what it rated on Metacritic. 64. But in my head, at the time, was I thinking, oh yeah, this is a 64. I just loved the game, you know. And years later, like I still want a new gen port of it. I'd recommend people to play that. It was a very unusual game, but so good for a World War II game back then. And then Mass Effect, my favorite game of all time, is rated in the 90s. I had no idea it was rated like that high until like 3 years ago. There's this war on Twitter when it comes to Metacritic, and it happens on forums like ResetEra and NeoGAF and Reddit. It's like people just use these scores to throw at each other. It became console war bait, and I get it. You want the game you're looking forward to do well, but it's just got to a point now where like people are saying like rated 87 games. I remember Shadow of the Tomb Raider got like an 86, and people were calling it trash. Like an 86, like really, like is that where we're at now? And it just happens all the time. I think review scores serve a purpose. But I just think, people just talking about review scores all the time. Like, when a game is about to come out, and this mainly happens for exclusives now, people go on, what's the game going to get by doing predictions? Which is, it's fine. But they just throw these scores back and forth at each other. Like, what's the point? What do we get out of games doing badly? Nothing. What do we get out of games doing well? Bloody sequels. And there's too many times in the past where people just celebrate these bad scores. This happened with Quantum Break. We would probably have a sequel by now if people didn't talk about the resolution and review score of that game. It was a genuinely good game. And we're not going to see sequels to a lot of games because they suffered the same bloody, circumstances. And honestly, I get it. People want to do predictions. Like, they want Xbox to have more higher rated games. And there's people out there that want PlayStation to continue to have higher rated games. But it's like, at the end of the day, does it really matter to us? Like, yes, there are people out there that do base their buying choices on reviews. But it's like, you're better off finding a reviewer that you have similar tastes with and go off their reviews, not the score, than just an overall meta score. And that makes no sense. Again, Dying Light, people talk about Dying Light all the time. It's rated in the 70s. And to me, is it a 70 rated game? No, it's like a high 8 in my opinion. A low 9 because it's just so good. And it's just a shame that's where we're at now, Yes, this is an Xbox podcast, but like the Horizon Zero Dawn thing, like there's people upset that it got like an 89 or whatever it is. Like, that's a bloody good score, I don't understand why people are so obsessed with a game needing to do so high. Like, the only people that should be concerned about getting a high score are the people whose wages are based on it. Again, like you were saying, Obsidian, they were 1 point away from a payday. Or should I say an extra payday. But it's like, it's just a shame that's where we're at now. People just argue all day. And look, Edge of Eternity is on screen right now. It's like, that's a great game. And it's been rated in like the 60s or 70s. It's like, in my opinion, it's pretty much like a high 8 because it's just so good. Again, it's a JRPG that offers a lot of, quality of life features, and it's just a shame that's where we are, I think we can be better, I get it. People have had a rough, past generation. We want our company, our favorite company to do well, but isn't it better if we all succeed? Like PlayStation, they're going to have good games. Xbox, they invested more than ever into products going over the next few years. Like, again, Starfield comes out this year. They invested in the whole Stalker thing. We're going to hear about Redfall this year and Forza Motorsport. And the list goes on, believe me. Like, does it really matter? Should we constantly talk about review scores? Because if you don't read the bloody review, what's the point of giving the score away? It's just weird, man. Honestly, it just makes me mad. Like that's all you see with every new release now. Metascore,
Hmm.
Metascore, Metascore. Dying Light. Oh, it's rated in the 70s. Well, guess what? The first game still gets bloody good content, and I just hate it, man. It's just really annoying. I'm gonna be ranting about this all day, so we'll move on. um,
I feel you. It's a topic I could spend a whole episode on.
yeah, I mean, we can be better than this. There's review scores. Like if people go out and base their reviews on scores, I don't get it. Read the review itself, and if your tastes align with what you're reading, go buy it, go play it. Or if it's in Game Pass, download it and play it. Anyway, let's move on before I rant even more. So, Japanese games. Nintendo had their direct, and it was actually pretty good, I thought. And it turns out, afterwards, a lot of those games were actually announced for Xbox. Mainly, one of them being Chrono Cross, the remaster, which I was surprised because Square Enix is cherry picking once again about what games.
They acknowledge we exist. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like yes, Xbox does exist for the old stuff, but hey, I'll take it. Again, I've never played Chrono Cross, so this is my opportunity to do that. And it has the Radical Dreamers Chrono Cross, which is like a prequel, but there was a few other games. There's a Gundam RPG which is coming to Xbox. There's a few other titles coming to Xbox. What did you think about that whole situation? Because you watched the Nintendo Direct, yeah?
I didn't watch it, but I caught a recap of some stuff that came and like I love Nintendo. I grew up with them, so I'm always interested to see what they're doing as well. And I play my Switch, and I was happy to see Mario Strikers come back. I know there's not a lot of arcade kind of quality sports games too much in this era of consoles. There used to be a lot of them in the 90s and early 2000s, but kind of like with movie adaptations, they kind of went away from that. It's nice to see a resurgence of that. I thought it was interesting that instead of a Mario Kart 9, they're basically adding a just a boatload of DLC for Mario Kart 8 again, just to keep that sucker running. But I mean, that game is a racing giant, and I mean, it's so good. I get why they're doing it. Kirby will be great. Um, just yeah, Nintendo's doing their thing, and kudos to them. And I'm glad those some of those titles are coming to Xbox, like Chrono Cross. I'm very excited about. Maybe, hopefully, this means we could get Chrono Trigger too. I don't know. I mean, Square seems allergic to Xbox money, so maybe not. But I'd be happy for that. Gundam is awesome. Love mechs with energy swords. Count me in. And just in general, I think Xbox is going in the right direction with Asia stuff. They still got their work cut out for them. There's still a lot of stuff they need to do, but overall, this generation is already starting off on a much better foot than last gen in terms of Asian quality.
Yeah, there's been a lot of Japanese games coming over, and I think this is the first Gundam game to come on Xbox in maybe like 11 years. Like, it's been a long time since we've had a Gundam game. I think maybe like during the mid 360 era. So, hey, I mean, it's a good time for Gundam fans, finally. And it looks pretty cool. And, when Chrono Cross came up, the first thought I had was Chrono Trigger. Are we getting Chrono Trigger? Because, that's more of a sci-fi type game. And Chrono Trigger, like, I had fond memories of always wanting to play that because I had friends at school that always played that on like the Super Nintendo because I had a Sega Mega Drive, which had next to no RPGs. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we're gonna see more probably. I mean, again, we've seen many of these RPGs in the past come to Xbox, like the older style ones. And the cool thing is, it has battle enhancements. So if you're new to JRPGs or don't want to grind, you can literally click in one of the thumbsticks and you get all your health back, and you have maximum battle readiness, whatever it is in Chrono Cross. But yeah, you can pretty much make the game as easy as you want. So for people that want to go through and blast through the story, they're going to be able to do that. And it comes out pretty soon. So yeah, it's a good time. We have more Japanese games on Xbox probably in the past 2 years than probably the past two generations combined. So things are getting better. It's just we need Square to commit more. put some of the bigger games on. Even if like I know marketing deals and exclusivities in place and stuff, but yeah, I think there's room for Microsoft and Square to get better. But one of the things I want to talk about is Miles from Windows Central recently put out an article about should Microsoft do an Xbox Direct, and I kind of agree with it. I used to think that Inside Xbox was good. Like, I like behind the scenes stuff. I watch the making of documentaries you get with movies. Like, I like that stuff. And I find gaming interesting. So I always like to hear about developers talking about their games they've made. And, I think people do want Microsoft to do something like a Direct. But I think people kind of get it wrong because when you watch a Direct, they talk about games coming to the platform in general. First party, third party, and then, DLC. But whenever people talk about Microsoft having a live show or a stream like a Direct, they always talk about just being exclusives when, Microsoft has a lot of studios, but they're not going to have new exclusives shown every single month. And then if they show the same thing, people are just going to get sick of them. So I think Microsoft would probably have to collaborate more. And I believe that they should, if just show games coming to the platform, because again, a lot of those games from Nintendo Directs were multi-platform titles. So I think Microsoft should do something like this. I think it would be cool to see more games highlighted coming, because if you follow the YouTube channel for ID at Xbox, there's new trailers on that every single day. But it's only viewed by like 1,000 people or something. Like, not many people watch that YouTube channel. So I think they could do things about this in a better way. What's your thought on the whole thing?
I agree with Miles. He's a good guy, and he does a lot of awesome content for Windows Central. Definitely check it out. And I agree with him on this in particular. Point blank, Xbox, fingers crossed, will have 30 plus studios once the AB deal comes through. If worst case scenario that deal did not happen, they still got 23, 24. So they have plenty of firepower and plenty of games in the pipeline to have several little shows a year. Instead of just going, okay, we're just gonna go, blast the cannon once a year. Like, here's everything, mega dump in the summer. All right, get out of here. See you next year. Except for maybe a little tease at Game Awards or a basically regurgitated, trimmed down version of E3 at Gamescom, where they basically just show the same stuff, but maybe a slightly different angle, in all essence. So I think Inside Xbox had its place. It was not my favorite presentation personally. I thought kind of they were a little too talky for me. Um, I think talking has its place and dialogue and banter and stuff, but I like how Nintendo. You always talk about respecting your time. I like how Nintendo Directs and PlayStation Directs State of Plays are very concise, to the point. You're here for this. You want to see the games? We'll go through the games. Bam, here you go. Here's a little exposition about what it's about, or a little dev summary, and then bam, game. And then take a few seconds off. All right, we're gonna introduce this. Bam, another thing. And I think if they spread them out throughout the year, like they could even do them per quarter, something like that, to where you're always in the news in a good way, where there's like, okay, yeah, we got a little bit of something coming soon. Okay, yeah, and then all right, a little update down the road. Okay, here's some other stuff. We'll, refresh you on what we showed, and then here's a update on some other stuff, and then just show different events. And I think they can easily do that. I think the one show, especially in today's environment and climate post pandemic, to where E3 is be determined on if that's going to be a thing going forward at this moment. But let's just say for the sake that it will continue, is that I think that they are so big now, and especially if AB happens, that they have so much content to show that they shouldn't just try to jam it all into there and then trim some stuff and then show that later. Like just show it throughout the year, and like that way you can get everything through in a concise and smooth way that doesn't feel overloading, but at the same time doesn't feel like, man, we only get to see them once in the news and then nothing happens.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on there. I think people just don't want to wait till E3, and that became a meme, wait till E3. But, to an extent, people do actually have a point. Microsoft, like, Inside Xbox is awesome. I like behind the scenes stuff, but the thing about the Nintendo Direct and the PlayStation State of Play is that they keep it on point. It's game, 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 and I think that people just want more of that. I think it benefits us because people just get to see new stuff. And I think when it comes to Xbox, there's someone spamming in chat. Thank you. Go away. Uh, but yeah, there's people just want to see more games. E3 for Microsoft could be just jam packed, right? But the truth is that people want to see more throughout the year. I think the way they handled E3 last year was good. They let us know of what was E3, and then Paris had the extra thing afterwards, where had developer talk. I think it was called the E3 Extra or whatever. But basically, the E3 extended show was the behind the scenes and developer stuff. And they should just split it up into that. People just want to see more games coming to Xbox, and this would be a good way to do it. And again, Nintendo keep it on point, PlayStation keep it on point, and Xbox has proven in the past they can put together some really good streams. So, hopefully they'll actually listen to the feedback. And again, we haven't even had an Inside Xbox in a while. And people don't want to wait till June every single year to get some stuff. Because that's why a lot of people get hyped about the Game Awards. Because that's another opportunity for Microsoft to show stuff. And they didn't even have XO 2021. So, I think they will listen to feedback. They just have to do it right. And, who knows? Maybe we'll hear some stuff in the next few months. We do need to hear about games. I think you're right. Maybe like every quarter would be the perfect way of doing it. Just to like spread it out a bit. But yeah, I think that'd be a good way to go about it. Anyway, Cyberpunk 2077 finally gets its next generation upgrade. It's got 2 different modes: 4K 60 frames per second on Xbox Series X, 30 frames per second with ray tracing on. It also has ray traced local shadows, and the Xbox Series S has 30 frames per second at 4K. 1440p. I think this is expected. I think it's about time. Like you like me, you've waited a long time to play Cyberpunk because again, it didn't launch in the best state, but with it being CD Projekt Red, people were willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and just wait it out. So you haven't played the update, right?
I have not. Mine is, as we are speaking, is upgrading. 64 gigs is a pretty substantial upgrade. And after reading the patch notes and seeing the streams and what they've been talking about, you could honestly call it a soft relaunch because they've added a bunch of content. They've modified some things that were annoying people. They fixed a bunch of bugs. They've added new interactions and made the city more lively. They've done a lot to it and made the most of their time. I know people gave them a lot of junk for how that game launched, and it was frankly deserved. It was not the launch it should have been. But give them credit. They put their head to the metal and they grinded it out, and it looks like this is the Cyberpunk we wanted at launch. Like this. So, for those who waited, like you and myself, this is the perfect time to jump in. Or for those who had been turned off by it and kind of just like, I don't know, this isn't anything I signed up for. Now's the time to kind of give it a second chance. It's like the No Man's Sky kind of redemption story, hopefully, for this game.
Yeah, I think it's a good time as well because people have been waiting long enough. I'd say the game came out in, when was it? Oh yeah, the end of 2020, and they just kept pushing things back. But they've been quiet for the longest time, so they've clearly been getting work done behind the scenes. But it's not just the resolution stuff either. They've added a bunch of DLC, so I'm just going to go over some of it because I actually put the link for the patch notes in the description down below after the show. So reworked driving, perk tree, upgrades, the map's been reworked, but the icons, rebalanced economy, enemy AI is a lot smarter, denser traffic and crowds, which is good because I've seen gameplay where there's just complete barren, no cars, no people. Next up, more reactive AI, new cosmetics, quality of life features, just a lot more. And the game now has like many different apartments you can buy. You can buy multiple different apartments. It looks like this is going to be the game that they wanted it to be. And it's good to see. We've seen redemption arcs for games before, like things like No Man's Sky, where it became beyond the game they originally promised. And it looks like CD Projekt Red, they're on the right track. They did a live stream earlier today, going over the patch notes. And again, all the platforms are going to be getting those, little quality of life features. But yeah, it's good to see. I think now is finally the time for people to jump into, Cyberpunk, because again, a lot of us have waited a year, 2 years, or if you've been waiting since the announcement, it's been like 9 years. But yeah, I think people should get downloading the patch. It's going to take a while. It's a bloody big patch. It's a huge patch. I kind of miss the days of Xbox 360 where day one patches were like 6 MB. But those days were long ago. Anyway, so next up, we need to talk about censorship, because you brought this up and I forgot about it. So there's a game coming out called Martha is Dead. It's a horror game. It's been in development for years, and the developer recently put out a statement saying, look, it's going to be pretty much the game it's meant to be on every platform other than PlayStation. And PlayStation 4 and 5, they've had to censor it. It's still going to launch when expected, but yeah, the developers are having to rework some stuff. Now, if you've read the things that's being censored, you might think it's a bit gross. And, I had no intention of ever playing this game. It's not my type of thing. But I do believe that people should be allowed to play what they want. I do believe that, Xbox, PlayStation, I do think the Switch all have, parental controls. We all have the ability to set games to play or not play. If you don't want someone to play Grand Theft Auto and you have the parental controls turned on, they can't play it. And that goes to, other mature games as well. But, this idea of censorship, I don't agree with. Like, what's your thought on this whole thing? Because you brought it up.
Yeah, my first thoughts are, well, we have rating boards and other things for a reason. They review these things and say, okay, this game has, here's the checklist. It's got nudity, it's got violence, it's got language, it's got sexual content, it's got drug use, it's got this, that. Okay, it gets this rating. Or, okay, it's just a little fox with a hammer and he bonks a clown and they laugh it off and move on. It gets this rating. It's like there's a rating board for a reason. So if they gave it a mature rating, and of course, to me, it feels like an M today is a lot different than an M, us growing up in, N64 or PS1 era. Like, what you can do today is a lot different than then. But point is, like, the board gave it this rating, and then the fact that they're going to take it further and say, they could have just said, no, we don't want it on our platform. But they said, no, you can put it on here, but basically you have to change your game. And so there are some things in games I like and some things I don't like, personally. But, at the end of the day, it's the creative's vision, and if they believe it's central to the game and needs to be in there, then, assuming it gets approval from the ratings board to be on a platform, then I believe they should be allowed to keep it as is. And especially for an indie studio that, look, anytime you utter the words "The Last of Us" online, it just summons a whole bunch of negativity and angry people about anything, no matter what you say about it. But it's kind of funny to me that they made The Last of Us 2, which is one of the most brutal, disturbing, basically nihilistic, glorifying titles in recent memory. Yes, it's artistic, and yes, it's to make a point and to make you uncomfortable and to be like, look, we glorify and revel in violence. You should not feel good about that. Like, did they have a point? To have a message? I get it. But for them to basically say that a horror game, which, newsflash, horror is meant to be disturbing and gross and uncomfortable and cringe and challenge you in different aspects. The fact that basically they're like, we don't like that kind of thing for a horror game. We're going to take it out. And, you know, from my understanding that this sequence is kind of like a dreamlike sequence if I recall correctly from people. But just the point is that it's a horror game. It handles things in a different way. It's supposed to challenge you, kind of push a narrative and cover some topics that frankly other genres can't. And so the fact that they're trying to remove their venue of expression for advancing the plot or the themes or the message they're trying to convey, I think that's a little authoritarian on their part and hypocritical because of how they've, like I said, and then even God of War, like you bloody put your hands in some guy's head, smush his eyes, and rip his head off, and like all kinds of stuff. Like, and then, sorry if that was graphic. I was just
That's fine.
as an example, just like they have some pretty brutal stuff in some of their games, and then they have an example of, oh, there's a butt, we need to censor it with a lens flare. But then Xbox has their own history of, there's a few Japanese titles that they have basically told, yeah, you're not coming on the platform, or you need to make some changes so that it's very clear what this is before it comes on the platform. And so, which is their right as a platform. But it seemed kind of hypocritical for the violence thing from Sony on this. And especially for a Western game, the only few Western games I can think of that have been censored or banned on consoles are like South Park games because of the humor. Certain countries didn't allow them.
Yeah.
Or certain countries basically took out a bunch of the game and just said, here's a little screen flash. This is what you missed. LOL, your country won't let you play it. And they make a joke about it and move on. Or Manhunt or something like that. But very, very few. So for an indie game, especially a horror game, to get censored, just it kind of raised a bunch of red flags.
Yeah, it is weird. Like Sony seem to have a different set of rules for their own games, and I think that's a lot of people's big problem with this. Is that God of War in the past and The Last of Us are extremely violent and have sexual scenes, but yet this indie game that doesn't look anywhere near as realistic can't do something that's violent. It's just a weird choice. You can't have separate rules of censorship for yourself and other people. It has to all be the same thing, and let people buy their own games and speak for themselves. Like I will never play Martha is Dead. I never have an intention of playing it, but I have the option, and I would rather play the whole thing. It's like you're saying, South Park: The Stick of Truth in Europe. Half of that game is censored. Like you get like a funny like flashcard that tells you what's happening in the scene, and that's it. And it's like you're missing out on stuff there. Is some of the stuff they blocking out gross? Yeah, but that's not the point. Why can't it be left up to the consumer to play it or not? Because there are people that will not play this game for the disturbing scenes, but that's their choice at the end of the day. And yeah, I mean, people like if you see a game being censored, like be vocal about it. Don't be disrespectful. Voice your concerns to the company that's censoring these games. And like you're saying, there have been games on Xbox that have been censored in the past. Do I agree with some of the things in those games? Hell no. But again, it should be left to the gamer at the end of the day. It's just a weird situation. I think these companies need to do better because again, we don't need censorship being another thing to worry about. Because remember, in the 90s, they tried to censor Mortal Kombat. Can you imagine Mortal Kombat without the gore? Wouldn't exactly be the same, and we don't need that at a time where games look more realistic than ever before. Like, games look ridiculous now. So even though the stuff that we're seeing on screen is graphic, violent, maybe even disgusting, it's our choice at the end of the day. And yeah, just people be vocal, be respectful, I get people what do like trolling and stuff, but, do we want censorship in general? No, Anyway, we'll move on. So you mentioned this before the show, the Halo situation. We'll get this out of the way quickly because I've barely touched Halo Infinite multiplayer simply because I think I've hit a point in my life where I don't really enjoy multiplayer as much as I used to. You know, I used to be heavy into Halo, Call of Duty, Battlefield, but I don't know. I have to be in the perfect mood to play multiplayer, and I just haven't been there. I will say this though, from what the multiplayer I have played for Halo Infinite, I think it's fantastic. Right? I think the gameplay is spectacular. I love the Halo Infinite campaign. I love the grappling hook, by the way. The grappling hook is my favorite thing about Halo Infinite. I think that's one of the things why I haven't played the multiplayer as much. I like having use of the grappling hook all the time, but in multiplayer you have to kind of wait for it to charge, and you have two uses. But yeah, anyway, back to my point. Logan, talk about Halo Infinite because you mentioned the whole post content thing.
Yeah, basically, in January or like at the latest first week of February, we were supposed to get a roadmap content from 343 update where they basically go, okay, this is when Forge is coming, this is when co-op is coming, this is when this event or these new modes or these new maps or whatever are coming. And then Joe Staten, last week I believe, came out with an update and was like, yeah, sorry, we're gonna need more time. Things are what they are, but we need more time, and we apologize, and we'll be back as soon as we can. So it's been about a week, if I recall, since then, and we still haven't heard. So it's just a lot of people are kind of chomping at the bit for new content on that game because I love the multiplayer. It's a ton of fun, but I might like the maps. Dude, playing the same 3 or 4 maps over and over and over and over again kind of gets old, even for the biggest Halo guy. They really need to spice up some things and add some new modes and tweak the playlist a little bit. And finally made Big Team Battle functionable, so kudos to them on that. But there's still just a bunch of stuff they gotta do, and the game, for a quote games as a service live continuing title, it sure hasn't been thriving in some regards. So just keep in mind and keep an eye on that. But I really hope they give an update soon because we've talked about the Halo community and they're very passionate fan base.
Yeah, passionate.
So just throw them a bone. Do something because they're getting a little stir crazy about this.
Yeah, do you know what I think the main problem is? I think that, and this goes towards Call of Duty and Battlefield as well, is that over the years, the way people consume multiplayer has changed, but the way people expect the content to be delivered hasn't. So if you look at Call of Duty, Battlefield, and Halo, they always used to have this business model where every 4 or 3 months we would pay $15 for a map pack, and then you'd wait another 3 or 4 months and you'd pay for another map pack. Yet ever since all these games went free DLC, again, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Halo, ever since that model changed, we get stuff less often. Like, I noticed this a while ago. Like, people want Call of Duty maps all the time, Battlefield maps all the time, Halo. People, like, the first Halo content drop, I think after Halo 3, I think it was about 5 months, 4 or 5 months. And then that was the same with Halo 4, Halo 5, and then, Halo 3. And Halo Reach, we got these map packs, which we had to pay for every few months. About let's say 4 months. But now people that play these multiplayer games, and they play them probably more than ever, is that they want content all the time. And I don't think any of the makers for Call of Duty, Battlefield, or Halo, I don't think they've figured out how to deliver content regularly, because that's always the number one complaint. Content, new maps. And if you look at things like Warzone and Fortnite, you have the same map all the time. All the time. The only thing you're getting differently is cosmetics and weapons via, season passes or battle passes. And I think that the business model has changed, but the way they deliver the content hasn't. and people expect more maps and more content ever before, but we're not paying for it. Do you understand where I'm going with this?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right because I remember even in Halo 2, they that back then they used to sell the map pack, like the physical disc as well, that came with all the extra modes and all the extra maps and stuff, and then you install it on your Xbox hard drive, and then boom, you have everything for Halo 2. Or for Halo 3, there'd be the map packs, like there was the freezer, cold storage, and then there was the lockdown or the city or whatever. And you would get these maps occasionally, and then it felt like, okay, that was a good investment. I got a lot of value out of that. But you're right that the fact that they are free now, yet our expectations haven't changed, I guess that kind of falls on both of us. It falls on us as the consumer to maybe change our expectations on things, but also on the producer to adapt to a different climate to where, okay, we basically trimmed maybe not trimmed content. We gave less content maybe than they're used to up front, and they're expecting more now, so we need to find a way to juggle the delivery of more content in a matter that doesn't feel like it's stringing them along, yet is not just too quick to where it's not good.
Yeah, and if you think about it like this, like Halo 4 came out, I got the collector's edition, and it came with, I think it was called the War Pass or something, and the War Pass pretty much guaranteed 4 map packs, and you got that over the year. So every 4 months, you were getting about 3 or 4 maps, and if you didn't buy the season pass, you had to pay about $15, and we go months and months without getting any new maps or content, because this was before battle passes were a thing for any game. Call of Duty, Battlefield. If anyone has some free time, go on YouTube and search Battlefield 3 map pack trailers. Like, they had these really big productions for these map packs, and some of the best maps from Battlefield came in those DLC packs, but you had to pay for them. And I feel like I'm the only person that noticed this about like a year ago, and I just really haven't wanted to talk about it because I don't want to bring up this point. It's like, when we were paying for map packs across all these games, the content was better. Like, Battlefield maps were spectacular. Call of Duty map packs, like I think it was called Kill House in Call of Duty 4, one of the best maps, and you paid for it, in a map pack. And it's like, over time, yeah, we don't pay for these maps anymore, but people want more content for free, and yeah, they are being subsidized by the battle passes and the microtransactions. That's true, but I just noticed it across the board, like, the content was better when we were paying for it. Like, Battlefield especially, like, that was you could tell the quality dropped, like, by a huge margin. I think it was Battlefield 1 when they start doing the free maps, but it's like, I don't know, it's just weird. Like, would people be willing, and this goes to any franchise, would people be more willing to pay regularly for maps again if the quality was going to be better? Because again, Battlefield maps used to be good, and they used to be huge. Like, Battlefield 3 maps, like, amazing. But Halo 4's like content drops, fantastic. Halo 3, Halo 2. Halo 2 back in like 2005 or whatever it launched, like, had map packs which we paid for and which are highly regarded. And it's just weird, like, times changed. People, and you're right, it's on both of us. Gamers want more than ever. Developers can only provide so much with how it's being paid for, and it's like, I don't know, man. Like, when Call of Duty announced that they were going to start doing free map packs, people lost their minds. They're like, yeah, no more splitting the player base. And that is the biggest point. You're not splitting the player base anymore. But the second they start doing that, and then, Battle Royales became a thing. It's like, okay, you get this one map for a year. Enjoy it. Like, I never hear, like, people that play Battle Royales all the time complain about the map. Like, it's like, congratulations, you have one map for life. And it's like, that's all you have. It's like Fortnite. People lose their minds when they slightly change the map every year and a half and call it, a version like 2.0 or a new chapter. It's like, you're playing the same map you've been playing for 3 years. It just has a little bit snow now. Like, congratulations. But this goes towards literally every franchise. I used to happily buy Halo map packs and not even think about it. It was a regular thing. It's like, oh, cool, new map pack, buy it. New map pack, buy it. And even there were editions of, I think it was Halo ODST that had like the Halo 3 multiplayer and the map packs on the disc because it was like that way of delivering the content at the time. I don't know. I've not really wanted to talk about this because I don't want to all of a sudden change well, I'm not going to change the industry with like one message, but I'm saying like the content was better when we were paying for it every quarter, and people want and people want more content more than ever. I don't know. I could be just rambling and not making any sense.
No, I completely agree. Honestly, I would be happier to pay regular price every so often and get really good maps, like fully fleshed out, really good maps that come with modes, skins, and other things bundled together, like really high quality, like if they really, really did their A+ effort, like they used to on these. I mean, this might be big boomer energy. I'm not even that old, but it just I don't know. It does feel like something has been lost in the quality and content. Like I remember Modern Warfare 4, like buying map packs for that. Those suckers were amazing. Like the amount of detail, the environments, the layouts, the weapons, everything was just pristine. The Halo map packs of old, even Gears of War map packs, all these things, like you got your money's worth. You got really, really good expansion. You're like, you know what? I feel happy about this. It adds on to the experience and it's worth every penny and it's great. And I personally, I know it's just my opinion. I would personally rather do that than just, sit and twiddle my thumbs for 6 months or a year until they grace us with another map or two. That, but it's free. So I don't know. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, so by the way, if any huge content creators or any articles come about this topic, I want full credit because I'm the only person on the internet who's noticed this. Out of 7 billion people, I'm the first one to say it. But while you were talking, I thought I'd look up Halo 4's maps. And bear in mind, Battlefield and Call of Duty delivered the maps in pretty much the same time frame. So for Halo 4, we got 3 map packs. It started with the Crimson map pack, which we got in December 10th, 2012, which contained 3 maps. That cost us $15. Bear in mind, again, same for COD, same for Battlefield. Then we got the Majestic map pack, but it was February 25th, 2013, and we got 3 maps, $15. Then we got the Castle map pack, which we got in April 1st, 2013. 3 maps, $15. Notice a pattern. We were paying for maps. We were paying for not many maps, and we were getting them every few months, like every 3 months or whatever. And they were higher quality, and people want more now. Like, again, same goes for Battlefield and Call of Duty. I keep mentioning Battlefield because they are the biggest, example. Like their map quality just fell off a cliff. It no longer existed. Like map packs were just like, it's almost like, I hope I opened a lot of people's eyes with this. Like paying money for map packs back in the day, even though it split the player base, we actually benefited from it because the maps were better. I just had to check. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, but I didn't want to set any of the fan bases off. Like, if anyone mentions it on, again, an article or something, I'll take credit. Now, we have to bring up the Scalebound thing. Because you brought it up, I completely forgot about it. So,
it won't die.
Yeah. So Scalebound is the game that it's never going away. So the game got announced, I think it was like 2015 or something. It was announced. People were a bit wary of the trailer because it looked like the guy from Devil May Cry. We saw gameplay. It was running about 15 frames per second. I thought it was a cool concept for a game. And then when we saw gameplay a year later, the frame rate was still bad. It was a different part of the game, but I thought it was a cool concept. And then again, it was cancelled, and I think it was 2017. I'm not entirely sure, but the game was cancelled, and all of the heat was thrown Microsoft's way. Now, whether that was because of NDAs, they couldn't talk about it. Literally every article, every video that came out about that game, people blamed Microsoft. And then years later, people over at Platinum Games said, hey, our bad. But it was after all the hate died down, people didn't care anymore, and people were like, oh, are we going to get Platinum to finish Scalebound? And then the story went quiet for a while. And then this past week, just as Microsoft's spending billions on studios, they come out and say, oh yeah, we would love to finish Scalebound. And they're not joking. Isn't that a bit convenient? Around about the same time they start talking about, oh yeah, we might go into do business for, games as service games, because that's where the money is now. They now want to partner with Microsoft after Kamaya said that, he doesn't want to work with Microsoft or be in the same place as them. He said that about a Gamescom. Now he wants the money. Now he wants to work with Microsoft on Scalebound, this game that got cancelled because there was a ton of issues. And bear in mind, in the time Scalebound was announced and cancelled, they announced and released like 8 games. They released multiple games on the Nintendo Wii U. They came out and released. They've came out with games on the Switch and remasters. They came out with games on PlayStation. Like, how did they produce all these different games while Scalebound, this $80 million game, or $70 million, it was something high, that just got cancelled. That was the only game that got cancelled. And I know they've said that, Unreal Engine was a problem in the past. Well, okay. And I see everyone now bringing up, Microsoft should buy them, because they clearly want to be bought. They've pretty much said that today. People want Microsoft to buy them. It would be securing more Japanese games. Now, before I let you speak, Logan, I just need to say this. I think it would be the worst decision Xbox has ever made if they buy Platinum, because they are an unproven studio for Xbox. And I don't see it being a good move. Microsoft own the rights to Scalebound. They should finish it with one of their 25 plus studios and not rely on a studio that kind of let them down. Not just, the fans, but financially and the reputation. Like, that really hurt Xbox. Like, you remember being on the internet back in 2016, 17 when that whole thing went down? We were dealing with the whole fallout when it comes to Resolution Gate. And as the Xbox One X was getting more people hyped again, that happened. It was terrible to be online. And then years later, they basically want an apology and to work with Microsoft. They clearly want to be bought out. And it just seems so shady to me. Why would you give your ex that cheated on you your credit card? It makes no sense. You wouldn't do that. And it just seems like that's what they're doing with Microsoft. I think there's many different studios Microsoft could work with to finish Scalebound or make something new. My opinion, it would be a bad choice.
I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on it. Um, on one hand, I completely agree with you. It's like, why on earth would you do this? This is playing with fire, dragon's fire. But it's just, I don't know. This might not be a good idea on a variety of fronts. Like you said, it's interesting that they released Nier Automata, which was incredible. They had all these other things. Yes, Scalebound was the Xbox one that fell on its face and got axed. Most likely there was some problems on both sides. Xbox wasn't perfect at that time, and they were kind of getting their feet wet trying to redeem the ecosystem and platform after the launch of the Xbox One. And then Platinum was working with a new engine and some other stuff. So I think all in all, it was just a cluster all around. But yeah, going back to them after all that, on one hand, I see it as, yeah, this just kind of seems like, oh, we see the gravy train. You're plopping billions, every few months on gaming and stuff. Like, let's try to cash in on that. And they're like, oh yeah, we're cool. You remember Scalebound? Yeah, I got that. I still got the old drawings in the back room. We let's do Scalebound again. Like, on one hand, it seems like that. On the other hand, I could see potentially, with concessions and caveats, it being a good idea in some ways. If it would give you a Japanese studio, it would, they, for better or worse, have a reputation in the industry that they're kind of outlaw rebels. Like they come up with some pretty cool, crazy stuff that's different than other people. They're they are very unique in how they do things. So if you got them, that would add a whole different culture and whole different talent and fan base to your ecosystem. Again, most of their IPs are kind of different, and their biggest one, Bayonetta, they don't even own. I don't think. I think Nintendo owns it. So that would be another caveat. If you acquired them, you'd have to then go to Nintendo and see if you could somehow pry from their fingers Bayonetta, if you even could, if they would even want to. But then, one hand you get Japanese studio, you get a name people know, talent, some industry folks that people are aware of. Kind of just renegade culture that's kind of cool, but at the same time is different than other ones. So to me, I can see both sides, but if they were to agree to certain terms and to if maybe Xbox had a more hands-on approach than some of the other studios they've dealt with, like for the most part, since they acquired Bethesda, Ninja Theory, all these studios, they've been hands off. Except, with Activision Blizzard, assuming it goes through, Phil is like, you report directly to me, and I'm personally overseeing this. If maybe he had a halfway point between how he handles other studios and how he handles Activision Blizzard for Platinum, maybe I could see it working out. But then that's a lot of caveats for one studio that frankly isn't doing that much mega hits right now. So maybe if the price is right, maybe if it's the way to get another Japanese studio, but I don't know. There's a lot of iffiness to it to me.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. We live in a world where this is a possibility, and personally, like I can see now that you mentioned that, I can see both sides. Like Microsoft having a Japanese studio would be a bloody good idea. Like they already have Tango Games, um, but having more than one would be good. Um, like would Vanquish 2 be a thing? That would play a big part for me. Like I want a Vanquish 2, but it's just that there's so much bad blood there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's people at Microsoft that actively don't want to work with them because of what went down and how it went down. Like remember, like all the articles like blaming Microsoft, and then it came out. It's like, oh yeah, they were like sorry as well. But it's a weird situation. A person, it has benefits. But again, they do work with Square Enix on a PlayStation exclusive at the minute. They are working on Bayonetta 3, which is a Nintendo exclusive. So it's like, which team does Microsoft get to work on Scalebound or whatever game? Do they get the C team, the D team? Because we've seen the bad games by Platinum, and they've made some pretty bad stinkers. But they've also made some good games. But like, I don't think Microsoft can buy them with the intention of making something good if they're going to put Team D on them. So I think it's a tricky situation. Microsoft's just really going to have to, like, again, if you're right, if Microsoft does pick Platinum up, they have to have someone over there supervising them, saying, like, I don't want to see this person on a trip to Dubai anytime soon. Why is that dude on a yacht? Why is he posting pictures on Instagram of a private jet? That wouldn't surprise me. But I think Microsoft is smart enough now to like know what to do. There is a market for Japanese games on Xbox, despite what people think. So yeah. But now that we're speaking on the whole acquisition thing, more news came out about the whole Activision Blizzard thing and how Call of Duty and other similar franchises would be handled. And it basically came out that these games would remain multi-platform. Now, there is business speaking there and how they could change things in the future. Microsoft has said that, Call of Duty may not even be a yearly franchise anymore. But like, I think Call of Duty remaining third party isn't exactly the worst thing in the world. Like, I've seen a lot of people freak out about it and say Microsoft's going third party, despite the fact they've spent billions on buying Bethesda, which is going to make exclusive games for Xbox, like Starfield, Elder Scrolls, and other games made forward. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, you've seen the overreacting, right?
Good grief, man! It's just what you think you haven't seen any. You've seen it all. Like you just the frenzy and just audacity of some of the stuff I've been seeing online since the deal was announced has been just mind-boggling. Like, well, we do know these are games, right? Like in plastic boxes or phones or whatever. Like it's just nuts to me how I get invested in things I love, my sports teams, my game franchises, my friends, family, whatever. But it comes to a point where you got to balance things, and it seems like either a some things are out of balance, or b it's just this kind of weird game some folks play, or maybe it's a mix. I don't know, but to me, I don't think it's a big deal at all that Call of Duty is staying multi-plat. To me, it makes sound business sense. Um, you take it's basically Minecraft 2.0. They learned from the Minecraft method, and Call of Duty, I would say, is that tier of a franchise as in terms of its global reach. Think about it this way: like, you not only have it on Xbox and PlayStation and PC and mobile, you add Nintendo in. Like Nintendo, if I remember correctly, hasn't had a mainline Call of Duty game in generations. Like the I remember on a Nintendo was like World at War or Call of Duty 3 on like the Wii, maybe Wii U. It's been a hot minute. So that's a humongous market and will make so much money. It's ridiculous. If you can even just port the older ones and then maybe via cloud have the modern ones on Switch hardware, you're bringing in new fans to your ecosystem. You're raking in just unseemly amounts of money that then you can use to not only continue those franchises but prop up and help some of these other franchises and studios get going on their projects. And it all comes back to benefiting the players because you get more money for your games, you get more resources for your devs, you get more time to work on these games, you get more games, and you get better quality games. It just makes business sense. I know from it doesn't let you go, saber rattle and go rah rah. My box got this and yours doesn't. Ha ha. Deal with it. You don't get to do that with this, but for people who just want to play the games, this doesn't change. Me being able to play it on my PlayStation or Xbox or Switch doesn't change that I can still enjoy it. It's not being taken away from my Xbox. In matter of fact, it's going to be day one on Game Pass. It's included in Game Pass where Xbox is winning on this. Like, if you're all about wins or losses, they're winning Xbox users because you get it in Game Pass, and then you'll probably get exclusive content like they do for Halo, like do their Game Pass perks and things, or get discounts on it through Game Pass or DLCs or whatever. Like, it just makes sense to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's these people on Twitter. Like, if people follow me and listen right now, you'll know that I cover Xbox pretty much exclusively. I'm pro Xbox. I think Xbox is a really cool brand. I like the game on there. I watch all my entertainment on there. Xbox is like, I just prefer Xbox, right? As a brand, I like the people, I like the community, I like the games, the control achievements, ecosystem, everything. I am an Xbox dude. And there's these people on Twitter that have popped up in the past year or two that were freaking out, saying Microsoft's going third party, despite the fact they're ignoring all this information. Like we first, I mentioned this to you, like when the whole like Call of Duty on Switch thing brought up. If Microsoft and Activision ported the first Black Ops game to the Nintendo Switch, I swear that would make like $1 billion in the first year. Like it would make so much money, it would be ridiculous. Like keeping Call of Duty multi-platform is not going to hurt Microsoft. Do you know why I know that? Because the day Microsoft announced that they're going to acquire Activision Blizzard, I went to Tesco, which is a supermarket. I was buying a gift card, and the person behind the till serving me, just another random dude on this planet, said that, did you hear about the Activision thing and how Microsoft's buying them? I'm thinking about switching over because I get to play it in Game Pass. He didn't mention anything about it being exclusive. He mentioned that it's going to be in Game Pass because people want to play those games for less money. If people can buy, let's say, a year of or 2 years of Game Pass, they're going to have Call of Duty sorted. They don't have to go out and spend an extra penny. They might go out and buy a Battle Pass, but that's up to them. And it's like that was one person I had contact with that said that. And a few other people have said that to me since. Do you know what the chances are of me, an Xbox content creator, in Durham, England, the Northeast, randomly talking to another dude that was thinking that? Chances are low, which means that there's millions of people that would be doing the same thing. So it's clear that Microsoft would be winning in the end. And again, Microsoft did say, and Phil Spencer said this, that he would like to see studios on other titles. He would like to see Guitar Hero come back. Guitar Hero wouldn't be bloody multi-platform. Crash Bandicoot, I can promise you this, the next Crash Bandicoot will be on Xbox only, if the deal goes through, that is. You know, we could have things like Singularity 2 by Raven Software, because they would no longer be a Call of Duty support studio. Like, that's an exciting idea. So yeah, Call of Duty, it's going to be multi-platform, but we're going to get more games out of it. Like, think about now, what does Activision make? Outside of the Blizzard stuff, they make Call of Duty, and that's it. They made Crash Bandicoot 4, and then they put one of their Crash Bandicoot teams on Call of Duty as a support studio. So in the end, we're going to get more games, and there's going to be more exclusives. Again, Starfield, going to be exclusives. There's the World of Warcraft community, for the first time in like a decade, are excited because they think Microsoft would actually put World of Warcraft in a good direction. Doesn't that just tell you how far Microsoft have came? Because remember, 10 years ago, Microsoft, evil company, people didn't like, and they had the worst things to say about them. The PC crowd did not like them. Yet you have the World of Warcraft community on PC are pro this whole, buyout thing. Like you've probably seen that, yeah?
Absolutely. Like, even the day, like within an hour of two of the announcement that we intend to buy Activision Blizzard, the StarCraft community like awoke from like hibernation, and they are like euphoric. The WoW community, they're like, wow, this means. Sorry, pun not intended when I said that. They're just excited that it can go in a new direction. StarCraft could be resurrected. StarCraft Ghost maybe. Guitar Hero could come back and not make it a every year's we shell out another thing you have to buy. It could just be a games as a service. Like, every few off so often we add a whole bunch of new songs or venues or whatever to do. Skylanders can come back. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, Tony Hawk. I mean, Hexen, like King's Quest. All these dormant IP have an actual bloody chance to have something happen now. Not all bajillion studios from Activision Blizzard are going to be slaving away on propping up COD to rush it out the door, whatever state it's in, because the board is obsessed with Call of Duty and that's all they want. So, yes, COD being multi-platform means others can play it, but you know what? It also means that you're getting all the resources and time that they need to where they can work on that and work on other things too that they actually want to. And that stuff more than likely would be exclusive. There may be a few, like deals honored and such. Like Xbox keeps their word. If they say they're going to do something or a deal's been done, they do it. Aside from that, you can assume that a bunch of titles that weren't already in the works will be exclusive, and especially these lower key franchises. So, in the end, it just seems like a huge win for the brand and gaming community in general.
Yeah, and I think, even people at Microsoft noticed that when this like acquisition announcement happened, they noticed that a lot of people in like the community just start having all these ideas. Have Toys for Bob make Banjo-Kazooie remake. Like, that's a perfect fit. All the sci-fi nerds online like myself thought it's like StarCraft could come back as like a third person like Gears style game. Like there's a huge community online that like the second that happened, they just looked at the coalition and thought StarCraft. It has to be StarCraft. Like it has to happen. Please, Microsoft. I will shill StarCraft all day if I get my third person game. I don't care. But it's just cool because the possibilities are endless. Again, there's like 40 studios. I'm exaggerating. There's like 40 studios help with Call of Duty. They have to get a new COD game every year, and the turnover for COD games is pretty much on like a 3-year development cycle now. But some of them have had to replace others in the past, so they've been took down to 2 years. You have developers that used to make skateboarding games make Call of Duty. Like, that in my head just makes no sense. Like, imagine if Infinity Ward, one of the best first-person shooter developers on the planet, had, let's say, 4 years to develop a game. Because they had, let's say, 3 set studios actually given a decent amount of time. Like, that would be the best thing. Call of Duty would be a better product. We'd have more games. And hell, Call of Duty would probably have more consistent content because they'd have more time to develop it. And, I think it's endless when it comes to that, Again, World of Warcraft fans, they are celebrating and wanting this to go through because Blizzard, look, we've seen everything in the news. Blizzard is not the best place at the minute. It's filled with a lot of bad people that clearly don't know how to make games people want, but that could change. That could change next year. Kick Bobby Kotick out the door, things can really change. And, I haven't seen any staff from Activision Blizzard really complain about this. You've had the 1 or 2 people think, oh, it's going to be like, a monopoly, or they think they're going to be fired. To this day, out of the past, new Xbox regime, we haven't seen Microsoft fire developers left, right, and center. That hasn't happened. It just goes to show Microsoft's changed. And, yes, Call of Duty, it's going to be multi-platform. But at the end of the day, you're still going to play it. You're going to play it in Game Pass. More people are going to get Game Pass because it's going to be in there as well. We're going to see more games by more developers that aren't forced to make Call of Duty map packs every year, or maps, or Call of Duty in general. It's like, who doesn't win? Like, PlayStation fans and Nintendo, they get Call of Duty. We get more exclusives, literally, because Phil said that these franchises would come back. You'd have more studios making better content because the developers are happier. Like, it's a win-win in my book. And the thing is, I've seen over the past week people lose their minds. Microsoft's going third party when there's nothing to show that. Why would they invest more into tech, hardware, studios, and games more than ever just to go third party? The Xbox Series X and S are pretty much technical marvels. Why would they invest into those consoles if they're just going to randomly go third party? Xbox is Microsoft's most liked brand, and the people that work there know that. People, like, when it comes to Glassdoor, which is a website which basically tells you how good these places are to work for, like, Microsoft's one of the best places to work for on the planet at the minute. So nobody loses at all. You have some fanboys on Twitter, and look, there are Xbox fans losing their minds right now because of Call of Duty. Do you play Call of Duty? Do you really care? Like, people are still going to buy it and play it, regardless of platform. It's like, people just need to calm down. And, like, look at the PlayStation situation. Destiny 3, or whatever it's going to be called, will come to Xbox, It'll come to PC still. So I think people just need to calm down. It's like, people and here's the problem, and you've noticed this as well, Logan, like, when it comes to some Xbox fans, and like, I'm an Xbox fan, right, but there's people that just lose their mind no matter what it is. Microsoft could make some slight change in something, and there's a part of the fan base that will just lose their minds. It's like, Microsoft are clearly invested more than ever, to the point where they invest in $60+ billion into gaming. This investment is going to be one of the biggest entertainment purchases, or one of the biggest purchases of all time. They invested into gaming literally more than any other company combined, and people are worried if they go on third party. Yet the fact there's all these signs that prove otherwise. So you are going to have fanboys on both sides that freak out. You're going to have Xbox fanboys, and there are some toxic ones on there. There's toxic fanboys of every fandom. There's people freaking out because Call of Duty is going to be multi-platform, so they think Microsoft's going to be multi-platform in general. You have the PlayStation fans freaking out and saying Activision games are bad when they are the most sold games every year. Call of Duty is the number one selling game every year if a GTA game doesn't come out. And we don't get GTA that often. So, I don't know. Have you got anything else to say on the topic?
Only other thing I can think of is because go ahead and address it because in the most recent dialogue from that blog post they had and about the regulatory process, they mentioned that and some popular Activision Blizzard titles besides Call of Duty would remain multi-plat. Just for argument's sake, you could say, well, that might include Diablo or might include let's see,
Overwatch.
Overwatch. Overwatch makes a ton of sense because it's multiplayer focused, like Call of Duty. It has, I mean, even more so, and it has a huge community fan base. Keeping that multi-plat, especially since now you're owning the tournament rights and all these esports stuff with that. Keep that thing multi-plat makes a ton of sense. This keeps the community thriving. And then Diablo 4's been in the works for a long time. I would assume that one is one of the quote unquote previous arrangement things that would be multi-plat. Um, but, going forward, I wouldn't expect all of them to be multi-plat by any means. I would expect more exclusive from this deal than not. COD, yes, it's point blank. They're not going to backtrack on that. You don't face a regulatory body and say one thing, and then as soon as the deal goes, ha psyche suckers, and then change it. That would come back to royally bite them if they did something like that. So, just embrace it. It's multi-plat, and for the most part, I think their other titles will be exclusive, except for a few that they've either arranged previously or it just makes sense for that particular franchise to stay the way it is.
Yeah, spot on. I like look at Diablo 4, that's not coming out anytime soon. So like they can't possibly be talking about Diablo 5. The next Diablo is definitely going to PlayStation or maybe Switch as well. Overwatch 2, that's still in a weird place, but again, that's a big game on PlayStation already. These have existing fan bases. And the thing is that these games can go up there with Minecraft. Like, these games literally print money, And I've seen people online, and I won't mention them, but we've seen people say, well, if this game, like Call of Duty, is going to be multi-platform, why can't Starfield be on PlayStation? One, a lot of people listening to this might know who I'm talking about, but they're just saying it just so they can get these journalists bringing it up again. Microsoft's going to make content that's exclusive, and they're going to make content that isn't. That's just the fact of it. And people freaking out about it, just stop it. It's cringe. Please, stop it. We cover gaming daily. Stop being cringe online, right? Like, Microsoft's going to be fine. Nintendo's going to be fine. PlayStation is going to be fine. They invest in... And the thing is, PlayStation's investing as well. They're going to make multiplayer games, which is going to satisfy the multiplayer crowd as well. So they're making single-player and multiplayer. You have Nintendo making the games that people love. You have Microsoft invested into games where they're going to continue to make the games people love, like Halo, Gears, Forza, Fable, Perfect Dark, and you also have many studios making games that people have wanted, like new first-party games and new exclusives. So people calm down, really. I had to rant a bit today because we've had a lot to talk about. But yeah, have you got anything going on over the next week, Logan?
No, just excited to see what this quarter brings. Apparently, there's been a few tweets from some former people at Bethesda and other stuff teasing some big news coming in the next coming weeks about the game industry, and then Geoff Keighley did, and some others, Jeff Grubb, I know. So I don't think acquisition season is slowing down. I think before the end of the year, probably in this quarter, maybe early next quarter, there's going to be another large ripple of things in the gaming industry, whether it's Microsoft or not. I don't, probably not, but I don't think they're slowing down. And you mentioned Perfect Dark. Just throw it out there. There's the rumor post that it is going to be a games as a service title from one of the lead designers on it on his LinkedIn or whatever was been floating around. That to me makes sense because if you look at Hitman 3, how they've been doing that at IO, it's worked really well. They keep sustained content. It's high quality. It's good. It's fun. It's engaging, and there's seasons. So I could totally imagine Perfect Dark, where you have the main campaign, you beat it. In Halo Infinite, they're gonna bring in new expansions of story and missions and other things. I could totally see that working for Perfect Dark. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And the thing is, Perfect Dark, like when they announced it with this, like the trailer, like afterwards they put out like a little making of thing, and they talked about how it's going to be an ever-growing game. So we've known it's going to be a live service game, but like using the term live service gets headlines. You know, like oh, Perfect Dark, it's going to be live service. It's like, well, yeah, well, a lot of games are live service. Like you said, Hitman's a perfect example, and I think you're right. Perfect Dark will probably follow the same way it's going to be developed, you know, where they deliver like, you know, new areas and maps and stuff, new missions. And the thing is, that makes sense. Perfect Dark would suit that. And I have no problem with this. A lot of games are live service games, and a lot of people don't realize them. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, huge single player game. It's a live service game. Far Cry, massive single player game. It's a live service. Dying Light 2 has no microtransactions, yet it's considered a live service because it's going to get updates regularly. So it's like people just need to calm down. Again, everything's a live service now. But yeah, the acquisition stuff, that's not slowing down anytime soon. We should be hearing more soon. And the thing is, you know, February, who knows what's going to happen? We're like halfway through the month. Things are getting interesting. And plus the lead up to E3 is always interesting. And that's if we get, I'm doing air quotes, digital E3. But yeah, it's a good time. And plus, Elden Ring drops next week. Which I think people that like Soul-style games or open-world action-adventure games or action games will really like it. Again, I played it for like 10 hours during the tech test. I think it's bloody good. Like, that is a damn good game. And yeah, we'll be back next week. Again, if anyone's enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. We will be back next week, but I have some other videos to drop before then. So again, subscribe, helps the channel out. Get the podcast out there. I have ideas for content coming soon. I have a video coming out either tomorrow or Thursday, which may be Starfield related, depending on timing. And yeah, I have some cool stuff coming this year. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time for gamers this year. But anyway, hope everyone's had a good day. We are out. Peace.